Well, thank you guys for coming, and it's such a pleasure to be here today. My name is Mary D'Onofrio. I'm a partner at Bessemer Venture Partners and co-founded our growth practice. We do Series B and beyond in software. But most relevant to this conversation, I am a very, very proud investor in Teleport and led the last round, partly because of the man who's sitting right next to me, Ev, who's the CEO of Teleport and in a previous life also founded another prominent startup called Mailgun before selling it successfully to Rackspace. So in this conversation, we're going to be talking about product, finding product market fit, and then doing a product pivot to achieve a certain level of success and scaling beyond that. But if you don't mind, it might be helpful for those who don't know to understand a little bit about what Teleport does now, and then we're going to flash back to what it did at the outset.
Sure. So thank you for the great introduction. And also thank you for having us here. It's a great event. Really enjoying my time here. So about Teleport. Teleport is an infrastructure access platform. Let me unpack this for you a little bit. So what is infrastructure? Infrastructure is data centers, cloud environments, like all of these locations where internet is running. And our computing environments, they are filled with technologies. We have servers, we have Kubernetes clusters, microservices, CI/CD pipelines, containers, and every single technology needs to be accessed by engineers remotely because engineers don't physically walk into data centers. Every single technology needs to be accessed by containers, by microservices, because computers talk to each other. And historically, before Teleport, remote access for every single technology was configured piecemeal. Like the way you configure access for AWS is very different from how you configure access to databases, for example, or Kubernetes or servers and so on and so forth. So Teleport consolidates all of these concerns into a single platform. So you could enjoy a single pane of glass to see who's doing what in your organization. You can define policy in one place, which makes everyone much more productive because all of you engineers, they get this impression of being teleported into data centers that they interacting with. But at the same time, it makes your company compliant, it makes your company secure, and it makes everyone much, much more productive.
So that's what the company is doing today, and is obviously providing tremendous amount of value to CISOs, to engineers, and to many other users that both use the product enterprise grade and open source. But if you don't mind, take us back a few years. You originally founded the company, and what was the goal of the company at that point? Like, what was the problem you were trying to solve? And you started with a different product. It was called Gravity. What was the moment at which you felt like you had product market fit?
So when we started the company, we were not trying to solve the remote access problem or access control problem. Rather, we were trying to solve the problem of extremely high cost of operations that is part of cloud computing today. Because if you look at your companies or you go talk to anyone who works in tech, they will always say that, hey, we have a giant DevOps team, and our DevOps team is always hiring. They always have a lot to do. It's always growing. So we just concluded that there is something fundamentally broken with cloud technology, and we've decided that what's missing is the concept of an operating system. We thought that the internet needs an operating system which will reduce the load on the DevOps team, and we started to work on it like way back in 2016. And the product was called Gravity. And yes, Gravity was supposed to automate a lot of DevOps operations. And indeed, we've been pretty successful selling it into organizations who needed to run applications in a completely unsupervised way. For example, in air-gapped environments. So that's what Gravity was. But then we started to realize that, first of all, this is really short of achieving our goal of building operating system for the internet. We found ourselves turning into a vendor who provides a solution for running applications in air-gapped environments, which was extremely uninspiring. Even though we did have product market fit, we had customers who were paying us a lot of money. However, when companies evaluated Gravity, almost always the first question they would ask was, hey, how do you guys manage security in all of these air gap environments? Um, and that's when we realized, like, hey, there is something here, something's happening. So what we would tell these people who had this question was, hey, that Gravity has a component called Teleport, and Teleport provides all of these security guarantees and compliance controls for every single computing environment. And then we started to get calls from people who said, hey, can I use Teleport? And I would say, sure, it's open source, go and just go away, go and use it. And hopefully you'll buy Gravity from us someday. And now let me answer your question on product market fit. One time, I got a cold call, and I thought it was a spammer who, like, someone said, hey, I found your phone on the internet. I want to give you money for Teleport. And it was strange. I said, like, why do you need to give me money if it's a free open source product? And they said, no, we want support. We want relationship with the vendor. And I said, we don't want to be a support company. No, we're not going to take your money. Just go and use it, but we don't want to be responsible. But then we started to get more and more and more calls like this, people offering us money. And then we started to notice that a lot of them, instead of asking for support, they wanted to have extra features and capabilities. And by looking at which organizations these people come from, we determined, like, hey, larger organizations, they need all of them need same features. So let's build these features and call it Teleport Enterprise. And once we did that, Teleport started to catch up to Gravity in terms of revenue. We became a two-product company. But that's also how we realized that we do have a product market fit. Like a friend of mine says, a product market fit at that stage is when you're feeling a pull. Customer is pulling product out of your hands. Once you have that, it means you have product market fit. No marketing campaigns. In fact, again, Teleport did not even have an enterprise version. Someone had to Google my phone number to discover how to reach out to Teleport creators. So that's how we determined that we had a product market fit.
So originally, Teleport is being developed to help with pipe gen for Gravity. But all of a sudden now we have two products. We're still 50% of revenue being split between the two. Like, it was a relatively courageous decision, I would say, to say, hey, maybe Teleport is the answer here. It'd be helpful for, I think, the group to understand what were the factors that went into that decision. Like, when did you decide that having two products was actually a bug, not a feature?
Okay, so first of all, it's lack of focus, and it's becoming extremely, extremely obvious. Why? Because we had two products, Teleport and Gravity. And the problem was that these products were meant to be sold to a different persona. That caused all kinds of problems. It means that you cannot go to KubeCon, for example, or RSA Conf with both products, because in one audience, like, we had personas for one product, and in another audience you have personas for another. So you're essentially doubling your marketing spend. And that's just one example. But then you could extrapolate, you could look into support. The kind of people that come for you for support for one product and another, just very different use cases. You cannot even have the same support team servicing two products. So it's just expensive. That's one consideration. And the second one was simple mathematics. So Teleport had a single engineer working on it, and it was making 50% of our revenue. Gravity had 12 engineers on it, and it was the other half of our revenue. Teleport was tripling sales year over year. Gravity was doubling sales year over year. So if you're gonna just start working with these numbers, extrapolating into the future, it very quickly becomes apparent that a single engineer making just as much money as 12 engineers and growing much faster is much better business than doing both products at the same time.
And what did your interaction with customers when you're making this decision? Like, what was their feedback? Were they upset about Gravity being deprecated? Were they excited about Teleport being elevated? and you're speaking a lot about the R&D implications, the go-to-market implications, but I guess what was the most important to you?
Those are very different questions. One thing about Teleport that I always loved is that it's developed its own brand. Even in the early days, I would just go to a conference and people would be uh, coming to shake my hand because, oh, you guys building Teleport and we use Teleport open source over here and we'll love it. So, and having a brand, even if it's a small brand, you are famous in a very small circle of early adopters. That's just hugely helpful in the early days of a company. Gravity, on the other hand, it had very few customers. They were paying us a lot of money. Gravity was more expensive product, but it had no brand. It had no visibility. And almost all Gravity customers, I would say maybe 60% of them, they tried to acquire our company at some point or another simply because they felt it was too risky to use a product like this and rely on a small startup. So when we decided to shut Gravity down, a lot of them actually like, oh, now we finally can acquire you. And we said, no, we instead going to donate this product to you. So we put Apache 2 license on Gravity. We open sourced it. So it's the most permissive license we could think of, and essentially gave it away to our customers. And they were actually pretty happy for it because they always wanted to have that IP. And now all of them have it.
So you've made this decision. I'm curious, like, what it felt like for you and the team. Did it feel like a pivot? Did it feel like a natural extension of what customers were telling you to do?
Um, so when I was younger, I liked to play basketball. So by pivoting too much, I damaged my knees. Ever since then, I hate that word, pivot. No, we did not pivot. I think what we've done, we just narrowed our focus. Because if we go back to my earlier answer on what was the original idea behind the company, the idea was this, that we believe that internet needs an operating system. It will be built. I'm like 100% sure of it. Is it going to be one company that pulls it off, or is it going to be a collective effort? I don't know. But something needs to be done about this overwhelming complexity that exists right now in all of our cloud environments. So with Gravity, we made the first step towards building that operating system. But then we realized that that's too much, just too much for one company. But the access control is one of the most important parts of an operating system. If you took an operating system class in college, you probably learned that. So what happened is that we reduced our focus from building the entire operating system down to simply access control component, which is also hugely important for everyone today, because the frequency of breaches is increasing. The monetary cost of data breaches is actually continuing to increase. Cybersecurity industry is basically in a decline right now. Collectively, cybersecurity is losing to attackers. And that is because access control is complicated and broken and fragmented. So it's a pretty huge problem to focus on. Anyway, I'm kind of getting too excited now because I love what we do, but I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, well, it seems like there was just a clarity of purpose, and you were actually getting closer to rather than farther away from the initial vision that you had when you started the company. I guess pragmatically, maybe you can take us to the next stage. Is like you've decided to make this pivot. You're completely focused now on Teleport. Like, take me to the year or two after that decision. Like, what was the impact? What was the impact on the team, on the product, and the customer residents?
So because of the growth trajectory that Teleport was on, we actually recovered all of our lost revenue very quickly, I think within a year or something. And by doubling down on a product that already started to develop a brand, we saw a tremendous acceleration. For example, I gave you these numbers earlier that we had like 1 engineer on Teleport or 10 or 15 on Gravity. Simply moving most of those Gravity engineers to work on Teleport allowed us to iterate and move forward much faster. So the average sales price of Teleport continued to climb because the product could do more and more and more. So in subsequent years, I think we nearly tripled revenue year over year a couple more times that led to Series B and eventually Series C that Mary actually led. Um, and but the end result is now Teleport is protecting infrastructure of the most admired companies in the world, like that I'm personally really proud of. I don't have their permissions to brag about them here, but the one advantage of selling to other engineers is that we get to learn how the world works around us. By selling into high frequency trading companies, we learn how high frequency trading works. By selling into manufacturing, we learn about manufacturing. By selling into self-driving companies, we get visibility into that. So that's hugely exciting, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So when you made these determinations, it was when you were also a much smaller company. As you said, you had 13 total engineers. Now we have a lot more. The company has grown, revenue has grown. So, now fast forward to today, I've invested and we have 3 products. So maybe you can help paint the picture of what signals you had recently that, hey, based on the learnings of the past when we weren't ready for a multi-product company, now we actually are.
Oh, that's a great question. Because those of you who are on your cell phones right now, I'm assuming you are probably checking out our website. And on our website, you will see that, hey, Teleport offers 3 products. There is Teleport Access, Teleport Policy, and Teleport Identity. And the obvious cynical question would be like, hey, you guy like that on stage, you just told us that focus is important and being a dual product company is not good. You should have a single product. Meanwhile, you have 3 products on your website today in 2024. Well, the answer is those 3 products we have, they're perfectly complementary. We sell to same ICP, ideal customer profile. We go to same conference to sell all 3. We run same marketing campaigns that sell all 3. So which means that the marginal cost of having 3 products is really, really, really minimal. Moreover, the reason why we have these 3 products now is because the platform was starting to become fairly big. So then you have a lot of capabilities and benefits to explain to your customers. Meanwhile, when customers come to you, they usually have one thing that's top of mind. Everything else also is important, but there is one thing is more important than others. And then over time, you notice that, hey, that top of mind thing falls into one of these 3 categories. So you would become more effective if you repackage your product around these 3 major concerns, because essentially it allows you to compress the sales cycles and also ultimately increase average sales price because you get to sell 3 times instead of 1. So eventually, the repackaging your product into subcomponents is important. This is why so many tech companies like dream about eventually making this transition to a platform play. In fact, if you trying to raise money from Bessemer, they will probably ask you this question, like during a sales speech, like, well, explain to me how you guys going to get on a trajectory to become a platform. That's exactly why. Having more products ultimately, if they're all aligned to be sold to a same persona, is an advantage.
But a lot of folks in the audience and broadly are generally picking between deepening their existing product and then also building something new. Like as you think about those trade-offs today, how do you think about what's your framework for Teleport as to whether or not to build an incremental product or to deepen one of the 3 we already have?
I did not get. Can you please repeat that? It was just too loud.
No worries. A lot of the trade-offs in R&D are predicated on resource allocation. And how have you thought about your framework for whether or not to encourage investment into one of our existing products versus building something incremental?
I see. Maybe it would be easier for me, even mentally, to repackage your question a little bit. Essentially, how do you know if you're going to have product market fit for your upcoming R&D investment? What you're about to build? I don't have any secrets to share because it's been shared before many, many, many times. but I continue to be surprised how frequently that advice is ignored. And the answer is just go out there and talk to people. It's not that hard to have, let's just say, 50 conversations with a potential customer, particularly if these conversations are in person. When the person you're talking to is relaxed and they could just be honest with you. If you meet any executive at any company, you might notice that they're always slightly stressed out. There is something top of mind for them. Everyone has a lot of problems that they're dealing with. Like everyone's plate is always full. Talk to them about it. They will actually open up. You could simply sit in front of someone, maybe put like coffee or a beer, and ask them what's top of mind, and then just keep silent. And they will keep talking and talking and talking, and they will talk to you about their R&D spend. They will talk to you about problems that they cannot find engineers to solve. They will talk about things that break most frequently. They will talk about the reasons they afraid that they might not get promotion or may even be fired from a place where they're working at currently. Not all of these problems can be solved with technology, but a lot of them can. And if you have 50 conversations or 100 conversations, which again is not that hard to do, particularly in an environment like this, just go hang out with each other. This is how you can actually easily see that, hey, if I solve this problem, like those 15 people I talked to, they will buy a solution because no one wants to have so many on their plate. So we practice this habit of talking to customers or talking to people continuously at Teleport. Like right after this, I'm going to fly to New York to meet some customers again and again and again and again, simply because the world is changing, environment is changing, there are new technologies coming out all the time, there are new problems landing on people's plate. So I guess I've been talking for way too long on this topic, but at the end of the day, it's just talk to your customers, talk to your prospects, talk to your people. Just don't do it over the phone. Don't do it via email. It's completely different medium. It has to be in person.
Gratuitous investor advice as well. CEOs, especially early on, I think should be the best salespeople and the best CSMs. So certainly what you're saying is consistent with that. I think based on everything that you've learned from having built Gravity, pivoting to Teleport, and then now expanding the platform, is there any incremental advice that you'd like to share with the group on finding product market fit or effectuating successful, I know you don't like the word, but pivot?
So in addition to talking to people in person, another framework that I use to maybe it's a lazier framework. It's something you could do at home, not having to go out and meet people, but it's been quite helpful. I always try to understand what kind of talent is in short supply right now. So for example, even before Teleport, when I started my previous company, Mailgun, for those of you who don't know what Mailgun is, it's a competitor to SendGrid or AWS Simple Email Service. So essentially, it allows software engineers to send massive amounts of email programmatically from their applications. So when I was researching the idea of starting that company, I was looking for what kind of engineers everyone is trying to hire and what engineers are kind of rare. And I've observed that there was a shortage of this particular type of engineer. It was called email deliverability engineer. So apparently it was a manual job back then to set up a mail server, to maintain it, to figure out why your mail is bouncing or going to spam. So essentially that gave me an idea. Oh, if someone is willing to part ways with 150K of salary to hire an engineer, so if I could come to that exact same company and it's like, hey, I could solve this problem for $25,000, that's a real signal. And I continued to use this framework even before we started Teleport and Gravity. So I was working at a cloud provider called Rackspace at the time. So we would meet with engineering teams mostly based in Bay Area because they were large enough and also sophisticated enough so that we could see where the puck is going, where technology trends are taking us. And I would always ask them, what are you spending your R&D money on? What kind of engineers you're hiring? What kind of problems you're trying to solve by making these hires? And from there, you can extrapolate like, oh, these are really, really hard problems that are failing to be solved by using only computers. And then you can start doing further research. Is it something that you can actually solve? Because again, not all problems can be solved with technology, and some problems that can be solved with technology, you just don't have the skills to do. That's also the kind of self-aware a little bit. So anyway, that's the framework. I've always been following the labor market to figure out what problems are worth solving.
And I think the last question before we wrap up is just when you think about Teleport and even Mailgun at the time, to some extent, they were market creation stories, market evangelism, creating new product categories. How did that need to really create a new category to define it for your customers impact how you thought about your product pivots or your product investments?
So that actually reminds me about another thing that I always cared about, which is it's just more interesting for me personally to be building products that could be used by everybody. So quite frequently, when you're going through an exercise of starting a company or seeking investments, you need to think about total addressable market, and you need to go through this exercise. Oh, I'm going to be serving this industry. This industry has like this many people working there. These are their budgets. So if I could get, so this is the total market size, I could get 5-10% of that, I will be in tip-top shape. Maybe I was just lazy. I never wanted to do that. I simply wanted to build a product that will be just used by every company out there. So this is, I always focused on problems that are visible to absolutely everybody. Because if you are end up in this situation, like for example, Teleport is useful to any company that builds software, which is everyone from manufacturing to government to aerospace to SaaS vendors. Every company is a tech company today. So if you're building if you're building a product for a market with a huge TAM, total addressable market, the path towards becoming a platform and creating a market category is actually easier, simply because of the law of big numbers. You will be exposed to more and more people. You will be exposed to more use cases. It will come to you. I struggle to provide maybe more nuanced or specific answer simply because it's context dependent on what particularly, like what is exactly is you building.
Okay, final question. Where can folks find you?
So go to goteleport.com. That's the website of our company. But also, if you're interested in cybersecurity, we recently published a book that you can buy on Amazon or O'Reilly website. It's called Identity Native Infrastructure Access Management. And that book describes you what are the industry best practices to keep your infrastructure secure. It's not an ad for Teleport. It's an entry-level engineering book.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.